Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Blurry Images. So we're just going to start off splitting our view and converting this into a UV image editor. And I'm just going to drag this image just from an ebook I was looking at recently, and not too frown on the modeling at all. I'm pretty sure I'm looking at a version of it that's unsubdivided at this moment, but it definitely looked like a tricky part. It definitely one that would be quite fun. So let's have some fun with it. And in fact, as I look at the image, I see that maybe I bit off more than I can chew. But you know what? We're just going to get in there. I really don't even need to see the image in my UV image editor, so I wish there was a way I could avoid it, but I bet there's a button for it. We're just going to begin blocking in the base, extruding up on the Z. Let's enable keystrokes so that way I don't have to talk about them. There we go. So real basic stuff here is just G, X, moving things around. And, you know, maybe something like that. Let's go ahead and add a layer of subdivision, and we get something like that. We're just going to select these two bottom faces, shift tilde for the boundary, mark it as sharp, and we're able to continue progressing. Let's grab these two, mark it as sharp as well. And we're looking at something kind of like that. So just how I would approach it, just kind of thinking off the cuff. I actually gave this no practice round. A lot of assets I do in videos, I like to give a practice round or two, sometimes multiples. I'm still working on the pressure washer in practice just to ensure that, you know, I'm not showing some BS in these videos. So I'm just really looking at it, scaling it, just making some hard decisions. Let's apply all this geometry, make it real. Put another subdivision, so immediate replacement. And if we wanted to begin dealing with this kind of curvature happening on the front, we can, but let's not jump all the way to the final escalation yet. We are going to Alt X, press D, jump over to bisect and modifier, and just split that in half with a mirror and place it up front, just so, you know, things are up front and formal. And from here, let us continue. So with Boxcutter, we could draw a circle that's aligned to this and bring it out, but it's just not going to be oriented correctly. Whenever we bring it out, it's going to be going in the direction of the normal. So let's just take that, you know, 32 rounds of howdy doody. That's a key thing in these videos, is that I always choose an amount of rounds that I won't regret. And so, full disclosure, if you're going to be adding some circular details on a cylinder, you know, don't be going at it with an 8. I mean, you could try it, but, you know, it'll be one of those topological unsolved mysteries as the result. So we're just bringing this in, just still kind of thinking in terms of the block-in phase, because we could block this thing in like super fast and then get back to the refinement, but we're going to just duplicate this circle and then separate it with P, which is kind of a lot of keystrokes. I actually hate doing that. So instead, we're going to go to curve extract, and just by control clicking, we now have a new object from the selection. We can just tab into edit mode, and we're on this new object. So it really just saves a bit of work there. You know, our goal is to just save you like 10-20 seconds at a time, but it definitely adds up. So we're scaling this out, maybe something like that, based off the 3D cursor, because I pressed period to change my pivot point to 3D cursor. And let's just press E, X in order to extrude this out. And we're just taking it flat on this axis, which I don't even think is the best option. I really don't. As regrettable as it is, we're just going to bring that out on the normals. So, you know, this is a blurry image. I don't even know what that transition is. I mean, I kind of do, but I'm going to pretend I don't. So we're going to select this edge, and we're going to press Control B. And right now we have a default bevel because it's coming in rounded. But what we want to do is actually solely the bevel, where we basically roll one segment in, press P to set our profile to 1. And then we could unmark these edges as far as sharpness is concerned. And we now have something more rounded happening. But with auto smooth on, we don't really stand a chance. So that means we also need to deal with the bottom, which means we should reinforce this area. We should grab this area, press I, and then B, accidentally pressed O. You know, O's just so close to I, but you know, proportional editing has its moments. You know, it's not I don't need you, it's just I don't need you right now. So let's just select everything, unmark, and because we have reinforced edges, we're able to maintain the curvature of our shape pretty good. Subdivision is a lot more lenient on curvature when it comes to these things than Bevel, but you know, that's a talk for another day. As far as who is the best master to serve, personally, I'm a big fan of Bevel in my main work because subdivision is just so overrated. Every loop gets multiplied exponentially, but there I'm getting into philosophical views. So continuously working our way forward and not getting distracted, we are going to jump off of this, press A, bring this out, and we're going to tab it. First, we're going to press escape and look at our circle. What have we done to our circle? So this is probably because of something we done earlier and we just weren't aware. So what if we want to get this a perfect circle? You know, I got some fans out there that really want perfect circles. So let's just right click loop tool circle. That'll work. Let's check this circle. Is this circle still trustworthy? You know, it's trustworthy from the angle we drew it, but this one being extruded straight off needs to be, you know, recircled. So I'll accept that. Also, I see like a crease line in there, so just really being super over analytical. The purpose of this video is not to say, oh, I could have done this asset better or anything like that. No, it's hopefully to say, hey guys, this was just a picture in this cool book I was looking at that's just a PDF that someone made about modeling, and I hope you guys go out and pick it up as well. And you know, it doesn't go over making this piece, which is why I felt safe to talk about it. But you know, this is a homage to the book, and you know, it's like 70 pages. It's a quick read, quickest read of your lives. And so right here we could just make some of those hard decisions. You know how it be. And let's mirror that to the other side. We'll just connect these points, maybe slide this over to meet it's a strange pair. We'll mirror that over. We also need to do it to the other side. I should have had a piece of it selected so numpad period would have slingshot me back to the correct view as far as orientation is concerned, but I'm pretty sure the amount of geometry we have is sufficient. However, every time I say that, it's not making a fool out of me, so never make presumptions about your geometry. However, I do think this might be enough. We're just doing a little bit of subdivision reinforcement while we're here. Might as well just grab this, E, grid fill, you know, that's almost good, except we want a few more spans in there. Maybe something like that, you know, with this side. Same thing, we just delete it, select this, Control F, Control Roll, and so maybe something like that. And then let's go ahead and subdivide it, turn off dots first. We don't want any weird business. Just ain't got time for that. You know, we tried to take a victory lap on that. Turned out to still be an issue. Still chasing it to this day. Legends say those sea boys are still chasing after the mystery of the subdividing bevel freeze. But we'll get to the bottom of it. Also, there's always static, which sometimes why I'm always in static. So with this area, I was about to start doing booleans, but we don't have to do that. We could play by subdivision rules, which is a little bit of this business. Us bringing out a selection, deleting it, turning it into a circle. I mean, subdivision modeling is not the worst. It's worse whenever you try to get a very specific design. Then subdivision is a little bit of a wankster, like the one that Jay-Z did a song about. So let's press Control plus, and I'm going to press Control Alt Numpad plus in order to do a boolean in edit mode, which allows me to just grab this stuff and remove it, but we're actually connected to the other side. So I don't get a lot of opportunities to talk about this, but I love it. I mean, our goal is to help people be more aware of the capabilities that Blender has whenever it comes to the Boolean workflow. So it is truly a testament to Blender's greatness that you're able to perform that operation in edit mode. It's just so hidden. Like, I was looking for it manually, and it's under face, where you can get in and start doing booleans like under face. Man, Blender's tripping. Booleans are so, booleans are bigger than that, man. You gotta treat booleans with some respect. Just can't be having us up under a face menu with some edit mode booleans. Like, these things are great, but I'm just being a fanatic right now. So let us continue working. We'll add a loop. That loop for some reason jumped way far. It's because we have a good old connection on this side, good old all-American connection. So we're just going to right-click subdivide, terminate this loop short, and I don't care if there's a tribe bordering that circle over there, as long as we get our delicious yum-yums from this geometry. So whenever it comes to quadifying, the solution for me is I will turn it into a quad when I have to. And every job now is going to be a study of how much I can get away with. I mean, I'll do the job, but there's some topological solutions that I just got to find out. I got to find out if they work, because I feel like there's some try-based solutions that are not getting enough play out there. But anyways, this is our part. I think the scale that I have is a little bit off compared to the one that we're looking at. I feel like I'm having some eye problems. Like, I'm just not getting these images right. I'm just messing up. You know, losing my confidence, you guys. It happens. Get a couple of comments telling you didn't make a nut. However, I've been doing a bunch of nuts, so I plan to come back and redo a nut. I'm not the type of guy to mope in failure, so just kidding. Didn't mean to even go there, you guys. Let's continue on. Just GG. Trying to get out of a dark place. That's so funny. We come out of local mode, and this is what we're looking at. So we could put a hole in it. If it truly mattered, we'd put a hole in it. But does it really matter? Nah. It's always a ponder. So let's just jump back into dots. Maybe turn off subdivision, and we have one dot in the middle. We are going to jump off of that, maybe to here. Get something like that. Press I. Let's zoom out and see what we're dealing with. And it's like, this geometry at the tip's going to be a little bastard to turn into all quads, you know. That just indicates practice should be done. So you're just watching me kind of freestyle this asset, which is good for nobody. I'm going to be using experimental workflows like shift clicking, curve extract to extract this piece as a solid, so we can start making whatever that is. Whatever it is, it doesn't look fine. So let's get in and get it over with, because we could say, hey, this piece isn't fine because it curves and meets up in this area and it's rounded. You know, we take it in local mode, maybe save the file. Let's actually use power save inside of HardOps. So we'll control click, we'll call this Topostudy Bookpart, press enter, and we're saving it, and we're good to go. So let's just press control numbers to subdivide it, and you know, something like that probably do the job, you know. Let's mirror that to the other side, and I don't know where this thing's mirror point is, but we actually want it to be where the selection is. So let's remirror that again, and now things are getting a little simpler for this. So we could tighten up the base if we wanted, but we can't add loops here because we start to compromise the integrity of our circle. So I mean, subdivision has its own rules, so all I can say, yeah, subdivision is cool, you guys, but there's these rules. So, and if you break those rules, you're going to end up with knots on your head, so like a cartoon character, and you'll never be able to get around them. So let's just right click this and circle, and that's what we probably do actually want to force a big circle. And so subdivision, a cruel negotiator, but fair. It's like Judge Judy, you know, a fair and just judge. Oh god, this isn't fair. Let's right click. Let's select these 2 points, and my background changed, so who knows what you'll see if my Blender crashes. So let's slide this out. We'll take these two in, merge at last, and we got something like that. Let's just move that out manually, even though just looking so weird. We will grab this edge, subdivide, grab this, merge it in at last, and I don't even know if our solutions are working, but we just gotta have faith. So let's mirror this to the other side, select both of these, right click. There's no bridge when vertices are selected, but there's a bridge and right click when edges are selected. What's up with that? Drives me nuts. So we're still on the well, now we're on the marriage phase of subdivision. We're like married to the task, and we're committed to using subdivision for this period of time. And so I'm not completely digging it, but let's add a couple of layers of subdivision on it, save the file, just take a look at what we have, and let's continue on with this thing, because we'll just get distracted by semantics, and we still need to convert everything else that we did into quads and add additional nuts and things and other parts and rotate this 45 degrees. So these parts are all parented. That's not needed. We'll just parent and remove transformation and then just rotate that 45 degrees. But I did it in clicks of 5, so if I need to put it back, I'm still able to. And holy bejesus, there's nuts on this thing. God, it's going to be that tutorial, guys. You know, the thing about a nut is I did a focus tutorial about a nut, but you know, in lieu of a project, sometimes some of the most important assets just become prop level. I mean, I don't know how to explain it, but you know, you'll just be working on something and you're like, you know, I got to make a flux capacitor to set under a table, and you know, you'll model that thing so hard and it will be the most like non-important tertiary asset. Not saying it's a joy, but you know, it happens. But that's what this nut is now. This nut is just, I mean, I'm not even gonna put threads on the inside, so you know, y'all cut me some slack. In fact, I accidentally turned off visualizations. Whatever hotkey I just pressed, don't press it. Let's extrude this through, and I'm gonna grab this face, press F, and then grab this thing and press Control Alt Numpad plus, and we're gonna grow this, delete the faces, delete that, grab all of this, Control T, Alt J. So now this is all quads. You know, we're done fandangling around down here. And really we need to just turn this into a nut and be done, because we have more modeling to do. So let's give it some loops. Actually, let's not give it some loops just yet. Let us cue and sharpen it. So now it's somewhat sharpened, but these edges don't need the sharpening. And if we subdivide, we are done. We are finished. But we do want to finish this thing so we don't have to return to it, because anytime you take a shortcut, it just means you have to revisit it. So we're looking at this from the front. We're going to first apply one level of subdivision, just so that way when we're done, we are done. So grab all this, maybe one more loop in, and Control B. We'll just grab all of this, M, center, dissolve that loop. Let's mirror that to the other side, and let's also do the same here. We just want to merge these at center, dissolve this edge, mirror it to the other side, mirror this to the other side. Let's rotate it 60, and then from here we can mirror it to this side and that side, and just get in here and dissolve these loops, and we're pretty much done. So you know, at first I tried to come up with a screw like off the top of my imagination, but you know, I've realized that you know, there's people out there who have mastered it and it's a done deal. Like Vaughn in 60 seconds, he has a video about screws. You just start searching for screw tutorials, you'll run into them. It's a done deal. I mean, you got to kind of convert it into Blender understanding, but that's part of the Blender experience. You know, that's the fun of Blender, is looking at tutorials made in other software and thinking, I'm going to do that in my program. I get people all the time who are like, I'm going to do this Boxcutter video on Maya. Like, you should try the version of Boxcutter they made in Maya. But nothing compares. There's only one Boxcutter. Let's add a layer of subdivision to this and stop talking smack. Let's press E, F, and flip this. So we get something like that. And looking at the bottom, you know, we're pretty good to go. I mean, we could grab all these loops and bring them in just to ease some tensions, but really excessive. And we're just placing that piece there. So let's just move this piece to our collection, R90, and threads would just be so extra for this. This is really obsessive. But, you know, if someone got to me in a dark alley and was like, yo, man, you got threads? I'd be like, yo, man, I got threads. I do threads, man. Like, yo, man, you do threads? Yeah. Yeah, I do the heck out of some threads, man. What kind of threads you want? You know, I'll do them backwards first, but eventually I'll get them right. So, really making some late-minute poly adjustments that should have been decided on earlier, but you know, that's the life of Sub D. Hard edits. Like the hardest edits. Like edits you don't even want to make. Like, oh, Lord, but Jesus. Gotta move all this geo just to correct it to a reference. Let's just bring this through the middle. We'll press D, change our sections to 32, click and apply. And let's press S, Shift, and X. Let's grab these, E, Alt S. And for this one, we're just going to extrude it, bring it out a little bit. We see that we got another nut, so I'm just going to duplicate. You think I'm going to model a freaking nut again? We barely survived this one. No, I'm kidding. We made it through flying colors. So let's press Alt X, bisect mod that baby, turn it into a different type of nut. Don't want to sound like an idiot getting incorrectly mechanical here. For some reason, there's always mechanical engineers watching. Alright, so it looks like we got some threads happening here. So it looks like I'm doing some threads after all. So let's just bring this out to this point. And we are just going to just shift click curve extract to extract a piece off, and we need to turn this into threads. Jeez, I should have really looked at this picture like and analyzed what I had going on, because I mean, look at us. I was just gonna make a quick video, in and out, go watch Full House. Just kidding, I'm not watching Full House, but we're gonna need to press after adding some loops, we're gonna need to press V. And then we could press G, O, or actually turn on O and connect it only. Let's just press G, O, and we start rolling the proportional editing until we see it almost begin to affect the first section. And then let's just move it out. So something like that. Looks like we did a perfect join. It just matched right up like Noah's Ark. So Control B, something like that. But we want to deselect the triangles. I mean, it's like a controversial decision on do I select them or not select them. I mean, I just don't know anymore. There's so many sets of threads I've done. Just losing my mind on screws, you guys. I mean, I must know how to make them topologically perfect. I mean, it's just a screw or a nut or whatever I was talking about, but it's more important to me than life itself. So we're just gonna just keep on working this mesh and just finish building that shape. I'm gonna pretend like I don't see what I'm seeing. You know, sometimes you just gotta go back and be like, you know what, I didn't see that shape in there. You know, maybe you are hallucinating, sir. When did you take the ayahuasca? But you know, blurry images, story of my life. You know, sometimes I'll get a client job. They'll proceed to send me a bunch of blurry images. I'm like, pay dirt. Thank you, sir. I will get to work immediately. I mean, if they're blurry, it's all good. You know, it's terrible when they send you razor sharp images. They're like, I need exactly that Buster Brown. It's like, oof, I hired the wrong guy for this. So we have way too much thread. So that's a mistake. So how are we going to do this? I am going to press QOT and then press spacebar, and we'll choose decap. And let's press X to change the axis, and I will press Control in order to allow my mouse move in order to adjust how far I cut in. So maybe that's enough threads. We could press D to not display the original anymore. So maybe something like that. Good to go. Just give us a new mesh with that part cut off that we did want to talk about. You know, it happens. Sometimes you just gotta just cut it off. And all of this, sometimes you gotta just merge it last, not talk about it anymore. However, we do have to bring some of these pieces in just to cut a little bit of slack. Also, there's not enough geometry on this for subdivision reinforcement, so you know, I might fail that part of this particular endeavor. I apologize. My edges just weren't tight enough for you guys. Let's also look at what type of goblins we're about to be creating here. And you know, we don't have to let these orcs into Mordor. We don't. And you know, quite frankly, I'm not going to let them. You know, we are going to keep our circle pretty circular, man. So let's Shift C, and our cursor's not going anywhere, so let's snap our cursor to this ring, and then we re-grab our ring, and I'm going to Alt Shift S with my pivot point being around the 3D cursor. So we Alt Shift S, 1, and you know, that might not be the best idea. Let's extrude it once, then do it. Let's right click and Loop Tools, circle, probably clicked the wrong one. And we probably need to scale it up just a little bit. I mean, this circle is looking a little crazy. And I'm just looking at this area at the bottom and not so much this area at the top, which is definitely questionable as well. I should probably have this loop continuing all the way along. But this is going to be penetrating inside the nut. So this is where over obsession will just be painful. Watch out being over obsessive with this dango geometry. What's causing this redirect? We brought one loop in down here. Let's subdivide and add a loop. This means we can add a second loop of reinforcement. Oh wait, no, we can't. What's going on the other side then? Let's subdivide, and we add our loop. Then we create the connection, and this one's going to be bad, but we're just going to try to survive it. I mean, it's an outwardly exposing thread too, so we got no room to goof off. And let's take these two, and actually I might even want to slide these verts in, then slide them back out just to kind of relax their formations a little bit. But I'll over obsess, and we're already 30 minutes into this video. Like I said, it's so easy to over obsess on a model, and really got to avoid doing it. Like I have some B-sides where I really over obsess on some geometry. I'm like, ooh, I can't spend 30 minutes talking about a corner. Gotta get out of here. You know, so sometimes I see all these requests for people asking for more difficult content. I'm like, yeah, but the production's also more difficult. It's a battle. It's a battle. So here we have the majority of this piece made, which turned out to be a humdinger dang diddly pain in the neck of a part. I mean, really, I should, you know, don't be obsessed with the base. You got to look at the stem. And we still have more parts we have to make. Like there's a cylinder in this circle, so that means we just need to grab this piece and just scale it outside of this, so that way we can add a loop here, maybe alt click EM macro to just push this out, you know, just random stuff, you know, chilling. What are you doing? And we'll just bring this out, press F, I, let's grab this edge and this edge, and let's press Control B in order to bevel. And from here, let's add another loop. Let's alt click EM macro in order to bring this out, shift tilde in order to grab the boundaries. Give this edge some positive reinforcement so it doesn't start doing drugs with the wrong kids. I was about to say the wrong colored kids. That's terrible. But yeah, maybe that too. You know, you want your kids doing drugs with the right colored kids. So continuing on, just to reiterate, my editors told me to inform you guys that no drugs with any colored kids is good. Keep the kids off of drugs. Alright, now back to work. So we are going to just grab these points and just form that, which is almost useless because I want this to be hard. I want it to be hard enough to go in. God, see, that's how jokes get made. So we need our geometry hard enough to go into those tough drug doing neighborhoods. So that means we're going to need to grab this and bevel it. You know, who guessed it? If you guessed it, you're free to leave. You don't even need the rest of this talk. So let's just use Verti Mergy. Let's grab this, alt text, bring it to the other side, and our inside is definitely not solved anymore. We put one edge or two edges in there and it was all good, but it definitely ain't solved now. So also, I don't know where this thing's origin is. Oh, I should have known. Nefarious origins. If you don't see them, you can't trust them. So let's delete the center. Let's delete this, for this is extra. And I don't know, I just always use grid fill, and hopefully I have an even number of edges for it to work. If I don't, then the geometry gods have frowned upon me for that day, and I'm gonna sacrifice my firstborn end god. I mean, every end god needs to be sacrificed for this month's criteria, but let's just get in here. Put a little more reinforcement. I mean, I don't even know what the hell part this is. Just, you know, big blurry part, but, you know, whatever. And also, I feel like this thing is, like, thinner. We gave this a big ring. You know, I don't want to say what kind of ring this is, but, you know, it's not a ring you put on this. It's a ring you put on your geometry. So let us press S, Shift Y, S, Shift X in order to push it out on every axis except one. And we're just going to reinforce that. I know, real heavy stuff. Bring it over to the other side. Re-enable subdivision, save our file. And so something a little bit sharper. You know, definitely not pretty. Let's parent these two. Sometimes you need your parents. And let's just press S and bring it in. And maybe something like that. And we're looking pretty good. So with this piece, let us just shift click curve extract in order to bring this out as its own separate piece. I was about to extrude it out, but we don't want to do that. So how do you convert this to subdivision immediately? Maybe something like that, but let's put a bevel on it. And we slide it up one and press 3 in order to make it a subdivision bevel, and we give it just enough for something like that. And if we put an edge in the middle, bam, subdivision, we're done. So, you know, it's a real quick trip upstairs to subdivision. Like, it's like, yo, sub D my boy. It's like, what, you want me to suck all his corners in? Alright, fine. So, you know, corners are sucked in. Maybe, I don't know, kind of suspicious of this result. And we could get rid of that loop. And let's say we wanted to sub D this thing. Well, first we need to turn these into nice quad faces. We don't need to be leaving big open in-gon faces. We aren't barbarians. They're so easy to fill in. You just get in with the old gritty fill. Control roll. You know, as Bill Cosby would say, shibbity doo wop, you know, and then sell you some jello. But let's click on bevel and we'll press 3. And we're just going to keep on, but we also want to get this edge, so we could just press Q and go under bevel and just lower the angle of the bevel by alt scrolling. And it looks like that's not going to catch it either, so you know what? I don't even know what's happening here. So we're just going to place some loops. Save the file, just in case this next subdivision could kill you. You know, tonight at 9. Is what I feel when I use subdivision. You know, this next subdivision could kill you. Do you know what your kids are subdividing in the tool shed behind your house? Probably not. They ain't subdividing this. Oh man. So there we were making jokes about how your next subdivision could kill you. And then literally the next subdivision killed me. Like I said, it happens so fast. So I'm really just looking at the bevel and thinking, how much freedom do I want to give to the edge in order to bevel it and have it look good? And am I willing to sacrifice the continuity of this area, adding something extra? I don't even see it in the freaking picture. You know, that's another thing guilty. Well, not guilty, that I'm guilty of, to phrase that better. And that is sometimes adding extra stuff. You know, you just look at an image, you're so bored. You're like, alright, I'm going to do it my way. You know, I'm going to just add something that lets people know I did this model. Messing it up. So let us enable subdivision, come out of local mode, save our file, because our goal is still to finish this model, and we have so much more to do. We haven't even talked about just putting a big hole here. So without further ado, putting a hole here. Nothing big, nothing major to talk about. I mean, looking at the image, I'm like, what is that? I don't even know. I'm going to assume it's the same thing on both sides for simplicity's sake. So there I am being a hack, taking it easy on myself. But it's, after all, it's Thursday. Why not? Looks at clock. It's not. It's Friday. Looks at clock. It's Saturday. Alright, there's some problems with time going on around here. So I'm going to press I and then just right click and circle, and you know, that should do it. From here I'll press I again and then E to extrude, S maybe for something like that. And this interior is already solved with quad, so we don't have to do a whole lot. I mean, that's the benefit of using loop tool circle. It's a beauty. So maybe something like that. And let's save our file, because nothing's worse than losing your progress. Always save. Or be a slave to redoing. And nobody wants to be a slave to redoing their work. So let's do that again. Let's bevel. Press P to adjust our profile to be 1, because tricky, it got us. But you know what? We're paying attention. We're not going to take that 0.5 profile in these subdivisional times. So maybe something like that. However, the best we can do for adjusting our shading is kind of alleviating things by just sliding around. I mean, really, it's all we have. So we could also tighten it up a little bit, just really close rank on this area, even on its base. I mean, really, doesn't matter. We're being obsessive. So let us take this face, delete it, and we will just bring in a face, start control rolling the wheel, look at this face, delete it, bring in another grid fill, start control rolling the wheel, and just like that, we've made this into an all quad shape. So you see that the process, you know, whenever you're just working with the geometry, is pretty straightforward for building stuff and things whenever it comes to Blender. So I'm going to control S, save the file, and we're going to select this loop, and I'm just going to control click curve extract so we can extract this into its own piece. And hard decisions, hard decisions, hard decisions, cue, solidify, and maybe that is our response. Let's Alt V, look at its wireframe, and you know, I'm not liking this picture. Let's look at it like that. Control A, that's what we have. Let's add a bevel, press 3, subdivide it again, basically up-resing it. Kind of the same results as before, but just buffering it. I mean, half the stuff we're obsessed with isn't even going to be showing. I mean, in the grand scheme of this model, how important is all this? But to you, the viewer, it's probably everything. You're probably as complicated as a client. So maybe something like that. If we have to scale that down, it's going to open a nightmare of hell that only Doom God can save us from. And I really don't know what's going on there, so I'm just going to grab a nut, this nut, the nearest nut we can find, and let's just grab this area, control X and delete it, grid fill, roll it, maybe add an additional span to it, but we want to roll it around where it's good. You know, we don't want to get subpar span. So I'm going to extrude this out. We'll bring in a loop for reinforcement, and the loop that we have on the inside can be our loop that determines the curvature that happens from this. And so, you know, we got to make this piece go there. How am I going to do it? Well, I'm going to go under my snapping, and I don't even bother turning on snapping because I could just activate it with control. We'll turn on face, line rotation to target. Let's see how we do. And let's go back and set ourselves to center. And something like that. Not perfect. It's flipped. Let's RXX 180. Then we can press GZZ for local. You just double tap letters for local. And it's like calling your parents on 1-800-COLLECT or something, but with geometry. So now we have this piece placed. We want our mirror before our sub D, because if sub D isn't last, it's just a ninny. It's just a thing about subdivision. So now we're looking at our piece, and we're pretty close to being done a Reno with this piece of Reno. I mean, when we have to put a nut on the side, you guaranteedly believe that I'm going to duplicately this piece and place a diddly on the sides over here. So let's continue on. That was actually hard to say just now. I was trying to channel my internet Flanders, so we won't do that again. We won't diddly do that again. Sorry. Alright, so let's just get Flanders out of our head and start rolling this. After this video, I think I'm gonna just start watching old Simpsons. Like, I love the first 9 seasons. Like, really, really love them. Like, I will sit down and watch the Simpsons all the way up to like season 20. Around season 19, I'm like, wow, you got to sit down and look how the show's transformed into what we're looking at now. You know, so it's not so much a moment of admiration. And then when Lady Gaga comes in, I am just so disappointed. I mean, not anything against Lady Gaga, just Lisa had her own characterization going on, and she had like 15 seasons of it. So for her to lose her identity in that episode just for, you know, look at me talking about cartoon stuff. This stuff doesn't matter. You know, Matt Groening doesn't even care. He's not watching this video, just kidding. But we're just having some fun here, talking about Simpsons. You know, typical Blender stuff. Rotating shapes 180 degrees repeatedly. Just placing stuff. You know, not the smartest. But when it comes to scale, I feel like my sense of scale is off, but over the course of modeling, I get better at understanding it and thus correcting it. So let's place this piece here. We'll scale it up. RX 180 GZZ, not Z at all. Yeah, I've been thinking about actually unmapping the Z for the shading pie. You know, no beef to Blender for putting it there, but I don't need it. Not on Z. Z is so important. Like my bare hands fall on that key. So we're doing pretty good on this piece. Like we are close to Rapperinos on this 2 Tiddly Oriole. So the last thing of discussion is this little sled in the front, which is going to be a I'm sorry, I can't stop, guys. Anyways, that's going to be a pain for sure. So I'm just thinking of more Simpsons related jokes I could be saying, but I'll spare you guys for sure. I mean, Futurama's good too, but there's less timeless humor that has me falling out of my chair, but there's definitely some good moments in it. So how do we want to do this? Extrude directly out on the X, SX. So if we look at this piece, it's a little short piece, so we're bringing it out, we're giving it just too much credit. So let's actually undo it a bit too, because we're giving it too much height as well. Just really giving this piece a lot of credit. It's just not as close to the nut. Part of my pun, not a pun, literal modeling term, as it would indicate. So maybe something like that. And then let's Control R, add a loop. We'll just pull this loop out. And what we want to do is first save the file. Alt W, use Boxcutter, Control X. And you know, if it weren't for complainers in the comments, you guys would have saw a great wallpaper. Just kidding, it was totally inappropriate. But you know, like I always tell people, whenever your Blender experience is crashing, you need to see something that will give you hope. And so nothing gives me more hope than hope. Alright, so let's press K, especially a good pair of hope. So we're just cutting across, and I'm going to select this piece and use Alt E, and we're just going to extrude manifold. So that'll give us something like that. We can just slide it back, and we have our piece set up. So the thing about this is, while we modeled this pretty efficiently, Sub D is going to ravage this alive, just absolutely destroy it. So you know, Subdivision's a cruel auditor, and because of that, it requires its own degree of complexity. It's like it's like arguing with a teenager, just not really worth your time. But we just got to get in there because of the stipulations and do this challenge. So I don't want to add any loops to compromise any aspect of the top that's been established deep in lore before we ever came along. So I'm going to right click subdivide, which means we can now add loops that terminate short, and we're going to add 2 of those, and we'll just solve them up there. We'll solve them upstairs when we get there, but for now we're just going to give these areas their much needed reinforcement. We could also be using creasing to make it a lot easier, but instead we're just looking at our subdiv and just deciding when is enough. You know, is that enough? Is that enough? Just kidding. I just keep asking that. I'll drive you guys nuts. We'll place a loop here to reinforce this side, so we now have a double reinforcement on that side. For this side, we don't really have much going on with this topologically, so I'm going to just grab all of this, Control Z, accidentally use Boxcutter. When you click and drag with Boxcutter open in edit mode, it will happen to you. Like the old rap song, if it happened to me, it could happen to you. And next hit is my mind's playing tricks on me. Love me some Ghetto Boys. So from here, we can just add a loop, form a connection, and the more connections we make, just building up the strength of our community, the less of a chance they'll out us as Spider-Man whenever the cops come. So just your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, just throwing webs, making connections. You know, sometimes questionable connections, like that connection. We just made a connection with a villain. But let's get in and add a loop, form a connection. More just web slinging. I mean, we could get in there and be really particular with it if we needed to, but when's enough? When is enough enough? I mean, right now we're just looking at this in wireframe. We really just need to be looking at its shading evaluation to determine if it's the result that we want and that we've actually done enough. So, I mean, subdivision's a game of reinforcement. I mean, there's always way more efficient ways you can be setting up your geometry for success in the ways that I'm showing. I'm really just kind of thinking on the fly. Like, these are my kind of on the fly solutions, but if I were being more philosophical, I would come up with something a little bit more refined. Actually, that is just terrible in any language. So let's grab this loop as well and just form a reduction and get that out of here, because some things are just intolerable. And so now we're finally left with just this area that we can choose how we want to reinforce it. We could add one of these babies to reinforce it and try to call it a day, which is more than likely our best bet. You know, just something like that. So we have a kind of variable slight going up the surface, but I'm really obsessive whenever it comes to surfaces and subdivision. But, you know, sometimes you just gotta forget about it, you know. Just forget about it. It's easier to move along and survive. I mean, especially with this, you know, you got to ask yourself, what am I doing? I'm over here fighting the bottom. Let's remove that. Yeah, I'm down here fighting the bottom of a face. What am I doing with my life? Fighting the bottom of a face for a subdivision solution. What am I doing with my life? Just kidding, but there's got to be a better way. You know, I always say that in videos, referencing Mr. Show. But let's just continue adding loops, because our better way is definitely solving this all the way through. And do we even need this loop? I mean, do we need this loop for we can just do that, and that, just really reduce that area? I mean, geometry is just... I'm just wondering if I really want to sacrifice that whole corner in a very drastic move. But instead, let's just form this connection, which makes this a quad, ending our discussion about talking about the bottom of this shape from a PDF book that I haven't even discussed really. But yeah, the book was talking about modeling strategies, and you know, it was really cheap. It was like a couple of bucks on Artstation, so I thought one of the models in it looked pretty interesting. It was worth just going through and doing a quick demonstration of. So let's grab these, GG, slide them forward. So we're just kind of giving it a nice little slope, just being weird with it. I mean, we could get real weird with it, reinforce that, make it sharp, but then we would have to be getting in here and doing some loop reduction, which we probably should be doing some loop reduction as it is to something like that. But if we do that, we start introducing triangles, but you know, we'll survive. Let's Alt V, look at the wireframe, and because our mirror is where it is, we're not able to truly admire our shape, which is like this, not the other way. And we see that we really went overboard on the threads a little bit, but the last part of mention is this area that all I see is a nut and a washer, and it's going through the hole, which the hole that I created I know is too small. I think I knew at the time that I made it was too small. And so let's do my favorite part of subdivision modeling, and that is modifying a complex series of parts, because that's just fun, isn't it? So we want to hold shift and press X whenever we scale. So I'm going to S, shift X, roll the wheel down so our proportional editing doesn't move it too far. Maybe something like that. Really trying to lower the amount of boundary we're affecting. So maybe something like that. Let's Alt V, get out of wireframe. And if we look at the wireframe, no one will ever be able to tell that I made a modeling mistake early on and now attempted to scale it up to make it fit. And ooh, just so questionable. But you know what? We're just gonna keep on. We're aiming for a conclusion at this point. So I'm gonna duplicate this piece, remove mirror, and let's just snap it to this area. Looks like we're partying with face snap today. So maybe something like that. We can just shift tilde, grab the other side, bring it out. We can turn off proportional editing too. It's not going to be needed. And because I modeled a screw, I have that innate thing in my brain that says, oh, I gotta show it. Gotta ignore that. Your piece isn't supposed to be showing. Don't show it. And in this case, not supposed to be showing. It's like recessed. You're supposed to see the ring more than you see the other side of this nut. So I don't even know what this part is. I might send this video to the artist and then ask him what part it was. However, if someone sent me a video of them modeling my part, I don't know how I feel about it. So who knows? No offense intended, definitely. Alright, and so from here, let's just control click bevel, and let's just apply all these modifiers. Let's remove the spans in the middle. Control A for scale. Bevel 3 to add a subdivision friendly bevel. Then when we add subdivision, we get this as our result for our washer. And we could always just tighten it up. Not like I'm doing, but you know, something like that to get it as a very tight washer or something a little more rounded. You know, subdivision has its own rules and they suck. But they are the rules. As long as you are aware of them, you can live within them. Welcome to Sub D land. So now we are looking at the finished-ish result. I mean, there's always more that could be done to make these things look better, but you know, just wanted to do a homage to this particular part in this book because I just saw it and was like, wow, that's a cool looking part. And really, no offense intended by it. Definitely did not want to do this as a way of saying I could do it better or anything like that. Just doing it in the first place and inspiring someone is just amazing in itself. So shout out to the creator. His link will definitely be in the description. I hope everyone picks it up and he sees a nice search thanks to this video, because it's thanks to him even writing it that I wanted to go in and do this part. So let's take a look at this. And you know, always guilty of making these elements too big, so I gotta press Shift S X in order to scale it on everything except the Y. S Shift S and X, maybe something like that, you know, a little less dramatic. Let's bring this loop in and let's turn off our wireframe. Take a look at what we have. We really spent a lot. Sorry to call you guys that, but that's what you are when you're messing with subdivision like this. So now we are looking at our final result. Let us turn off the grid, the floor. We can look at our model and press Alt V. Look at it with our wireframe or without wireframe, or turn on EVHQ to really get it looking good with some better shading. So now let's finally jump on to rendering. And I'm just looking at this, looking at his piece, looking at my piece, and just thinking, oh man, I gotta do better. My eyes are so off. I'm gonna be seeing an optometrist before long. getting wedgies from the mailman. Mailman will just wedgie me on site. You know, it's a hard neighborhood around here. So let's add a bevel, press 3, and we'll give it about that much. We'll place our subdivision all the way at the end, just to add a ring of red that we can come back to. And so first thing is blank material on everything. This thing's a different color. This thing's a different color. And that thing's a different color. Everything else is kind of this really bland color. I feel like the washer should be bigger, so let's origin to geometry, scale it up, and that means our nut should be bigger. So that's what she said. I'll beat you guys in the comments. And let's just press Control I, and I'm just going to scale it up by Shift SX to scale on everything, but let's just scale it up freely. I'm just looking at this edge. We just want to keep it congruent with that edge. I know, really just messing up here, but I mean, this is always a stage for me in modeling, is just going in and just making artistic changes and possibly bad choices. You know, like joining a gang. And, you know, as I said, watch what color you're. Never mind. I won't bring that joke back up again. Only a certain amount of inappropriate jokes per tutorial. So let's look at this in render with our blank materials and see what our result is. So for this one, I'm going to shift click and roll it until we get something a little bit brighter. Maybe something like that. And this one actually came out gray. For this one, let's just shift click over blank material. We can press C to start rolling colors. And I've been meaning to actually have color added to the ability for users to set it manually, because we just rolled it to pink, and I'm just going to get rid of metallicity, lower my roughness, and maybe not pink. However, I do love me some pink, you guys. Pink's just so fabulous. Anyways, looking at our piece, thinking about, is there anything else that we need to change with things? And we probably need to tie up some loose ends like that with the double-ended, bring it in, and maybe something like that as our final result. However, you know, I'm always trying to make mistakes at the very end of my models, like bringing pieces out when they shouldn't be out, and grabbing other pieces and sliding them to bring them in when they should not be brought in, and then looking at how they match up with the surfaces. Just really reading these surfaces ever so hard. I mean, at the end of a model, let's go haywire on it. Just a little tweak here, a little tweak there. You know, what you gonna do? Beat me up? No, I'm kidding. But you'll definitely beat someone up with them tweaking your model at the very end. So with this one, since the main material is shared across almost everything, we could just shift click material scroll and scroll to something that kind of matches what we have. Maybe something like that. We can actually go with kind of a darker gray, something a little bit more matte, you know, kind of a really subdued gray. In fact, his almost has like a hint of green in it. I'm never going to get it. I need like a gigantic wheel so I can dial like some micro colors. But let's Control S, and I'm going to select this object, QOT, spacebar, plane, roll a plane underneath, S50 or 80, and add a blank material to that as well. So now we're at the beginning of setting this up for a render. Let's Alt VB in order to roll some blank lights in our scene until we find something that is, wow. I'm telling you, sometimes I hit a blank light setup that's just all one color, and it's just a done deal for me. I mean, solo colors just impact me. Like this one's got kind of a Martian feel to it. I love blank light so much. So maybe something like that, Alt VV, and we'll just jump through environments until we find just the right one for showing off our bolts, which are the only thing that's reflective. So maybe something like that. Viewport, we'll just set our view to 120, and we're not going all the way to a render, but you know, just having some fun with this. In fact, as I look at mine and I look at his or this person's, you know, Could be wrong to assume their gender, but probably a guy though. So let's just control click, drag this out. Maybe something like that. Really just relaxing the geo so we can give our bevel a little room to bow out. You know, something like that. I mean, really popping with us getting real hard with the sharp happening at the bottom. But maybe something like that will just look a little bit better. Let's also take this and move it over to our piece because our blank light just kind of spawned a little off. We could also give all of our nuts, you know, this is where I just gotta make artistic choices. Like, these should all share the same material. You know, they just gotta. You know, this piece, I'm just extra. I'm telling you, you guys don't want me on a job. I will improve things. Be like, why'd you improve that? I'll be like, because it was off. It had problem. Someone has to solve problem. And even at the very end, I mean, we're in render and we're finding areas that we messed up on. So, you know, people out there doing better than me. So let's select this. We'll bevel this to give it something nice and big. We'll bevel this, something nice and big, something this, a little more tight. Save it, add subdivision. We'll put a loop here and here because I'm a weirdo, and that did nothing. Why are we caring about stuff so deep? So with this one, we'll give it the same material as well. So maybe something like that. Let's Alt V, turn off wireframe, and you know, maybe the original artist was onto something. I mean, I'm in here messing up his masterpiece, but really the point is across. We just modeled this piece, so I hope that people check out the link in the description. And with that, I will wrap up this video and thank everyone for watching. I'll see you guys next time.